Hello there. Today I'm going to explain an advanced exercise that Gurdjieff gave, which is playing a role. And I've prepared a number of illustrations for it. And as it's an advanced exercise and requires various types of fundamental knowledge, I'll also go through that as well. First, some quotes from Gurdjieff. He says, "He who works becomes an actor, a real actor in life. To be an actor is to play a role. Life is a theatre where every man plays a role. Every day they change it. Today one role, tomorrow another role. He only is a good actor who is able to remember himself and consciously play his role, no matter what it may be. Play your role consciously. Internally do not identify. Externally play a role. Internally you cannot be as you were before. Be like an actor. You play the role of what you were before." Human beings have reached the fifth stophinder in their array of creation, but the last parts, which are represented by the head, are not complete and are not part of the integral being, and therefore the energy flows freely in them. That functioning is what is referred to as the personality. A man who is complete, and that may be a very rare thing, is within all his functions, and there is nothing that is outside of his direct, instinctive control. That is not where we are. And so, when we work with a personality and we play a role, we are working with the free energy, the energy that is not yet part of our integral being, and I'm afraid it has not been idle. Not being under the direct control of the core being, it has misbehaved and crystallized in many characters. Our personality is formed of many characters. We may feel that on a given day, at 10 o'clock you're happy, at 11 o'clock you're sad, 12 o'clock suicidal, and 1 o'clock euphoric. Different emotions that change seemingly on their own. But looking deeper inside, we see there are characters behind each of these emotions. In fact, they aren't just emotions. They are whole body postures. They are sub-selves, sub-personalities, some coming from one or the other of our parents, some coming from our resistance to somebody that we met when we were growing up, others coming from shock and other unloving experiences in life. When we play a role, we are as if the same as before from the outside, but inside everything has changed. We have separated ourselves from the personality and returned inwardly to the core being, to our soul. This is disidentification from the personality. But Gurdjieff wants us to play a role, which means we re-identify with the personality, but we maintain ourselves internally. Our presence, our control of ourselves, our awareness of our separation from our role. That is the difference. We decouple and then we recouple. Now I'm going to make an aside here to discuss a fundamental part of Gurdjieff's teaching, which is the wrong work of centers. In order to perform the exercise of playing a role, our essence must have been solidified Human beings as they are on this planet today are in a fallen state. Although in general and ideally human beings have reached the 5th stop on their array of creation, we are fallen. This means we have fallen out of it. The way our society is organized, people are fragmenting. They are living at a much lower level, to the point where they no longer even remember what it was to be whole. Although the wrong work of our basic functions, physical, emotional, intellectual, is often discussed, I would like to put that aside for the moment and discuss something else, which is the parasitism of centers, particularly the emotional and sexual centers. As we are in the 5th, and ideally we have the lower 2 tiers formed, what is happening in a fallen man is that the reconciling center, the center of the middle story, is parasited. This is the emotional parasitism. Well, I'm sure we're all very used to negativity. But recently, and as a result of our extremely sterile, consequence and risk-free society, positive emotional parasitism is very manifest today. Because violence, negativity and aggression is an exaggeration of something that is quite natural, whereas the betrayal through positive emotions is something quite cynical and fallen. When things get even worse, the lower story starts to fragment as well, and that is the sexual parasitism. Meanwhile, upstairs, as this is going on, a certain hallucination and fantasizing goes on, and there is a wrong work happening in the upper story, which is the fantasizing. We see this everywhere in our society these days. When things decline even further, and the basic image of what a man should be is also in decline, then you have images of chaotic operation and total fragmentation, even a celebration of the breaking of the white ray, a celebration of total decline. And finally, there is the betrayal of life itself and the total loss of faith and the decline into meaninglessness. These are all manifestations of serious wrong work, beginning with parasitism. So one thing you could do, rather than check your physical, emotional, intellectual, instead of that you can just check that your emotions are not being parasited. Likewise your sexual energy, and thirdly fantasy. Clean them one by one. The importance of the correct functioning of the centers from the perspective of the exercise of playing a role is that when you function correctly, your identity, your real I, is formed in the solar plexus. That is literal. The solar plexus is the center of the torso. It is from there that you act. You see many people today, when they walk down the street, they lean forward at an angle because their head, their mind, their personality is dragging them into the world, and their head is part of society. And this being is being dragged through his life by his head. But a real man does not walk like that. A real man looks more like an arrow with a force coming from the center. That is real I. And that is the result of the correct regulation of the 5 centers of the lower story and the cessation of the parasitism that I described earlier.